Newer people on this channel may have a hard time believing that 8 years ago, the Obama administration, one of the first things that they did was figure out that black students are being suspended from school 6 times, 8 times, 10 times more than white students. And the second thing they did after they noticed that, they figured out that the only reason that a black student is being suspended more often than a white student is because of white racism. So we've over the last couple of years, we've documented more than 100 stories, more than 100 videos, lots of which are still on a playlist, many of which are documented in both of my books, Don't Make the Black Kids Angry and White Girl Bleed a Lot. We've documented this enormous amount of black violence, black mayhem, black chaos in schools. But lately, over the last couple of years, we've also documented how schools are reacting to this new mandate that came down from the federal government, that came down from the White House, from an executive order called the White House Initiative on African American Excellence in Education. And the mandate said, listen, you got to stop suspending black students out of proportion. So they took executives from the Department of Education and the Department of Justice. They put them on the road, and they travel all over the country looking for this disparity. And if there is any disparity, you better have a damn good reason why it exists. Every teacher in America knows this. Every principal in America knows this. Curiously enough, many school board members in America do not know this. But that's what happened. And it's all over the country. We get these stories how they're trying to stop suspending students, and that's easy enough to do. You stop suspending. You don't change the behavior. You just keep the people responsible in school where they can create even more chaos. I'm thinking of one story up in Rochester. A kid was convicted of killing somebody. It was a knockout game. He and the fellas, he was 15 years old, walked by a bus stop, saw an old white dude drinking a beer. They kicked him in the face, killed him. 2 years later, he's back in school threatening to kill a teacher. Parents are going, hey, wait a minute, wasn't that the kid who was just killing somebody a few years ago? Go, yeah, but we can't suspend him after he gets out of juvie. And so we've done lots and lots of stories how all over the country this new kind of discipline is creating nothing but violence, mayhem, and chaos on top of that which already exists. So here's the latest story out of Florida. Some brainiac down there figured out, we have to stop suspending people. And let's go through that story. Then let's just go through a couple of recent stories of black violence in schools, including the one everybody's all fired up about, the one about the teachers, 2 black teachers fighting in front of a black classroom.
Danger in the classroom.
They physically endanger other students. They physically endanger teachers.
Tonight, the NBC2 investigators examine claims a new form of discipline in Lee County schools could put other children in harm's way.
Schools have to be safe.
The teachers union says it's all about training. Not enough teachers know how the new program works, and that's leading to badly behaved kids staying in the classroom.
NBC2 investigator David Hodges has been questioning the new policy and joins us live in the studio.
Kelly, the policy is called restorative practices. It's meant to be a way to lower suspension numbers and keep kids in the classroom, but the union worries not everyone is up to speed on how it's supposed to work.
So he's a senior?
When 8th graders sit down with a stranger,
disruptive behavior,
or even a reporter,
This year I've gotten maybe 2 warnings.
they can be
I'm not the type of person to get in trouble.
surprisingly honest.
Tell me about what trouble you got into.
I got into a whole lot of trouble. I can't even.
Janaria Lane is on her final stretch at Dunbar Middle School. Last year, she says she was out of the classroom a lot, suspended again
If I get suspended 1 week,
and again.
the next week I probably get suspended then.
Most of the offenses for out-of-school suspension were for minor offenses.
Dr. Pete Bohatch is director of student services at Lee County School District. Last summer, he started a complete discipline overhaul, changing the code of conduct and implementing what's called restorative practices.
Doing something restorative in nature rather than saying you're disrespectful in the classroom, you're going home.
This year is a little different.
Dunbar Middle Assistant Principal Trent Eckhart.
Keeping the kids in the classroom longer is the obvious goal of this.
Last year, if a student was disrupting class like this, they would get sent straight to in-school suspension for at least a period. This year, the same behavior can have a whole host of lesser consequences, everything from detention to community service to peer mediation. Now, sending a kid out of the classroom is a last resort.
The problem is in the practice and in the implementation.
Teachers Association President Mark Castellano says the program is causing chaos in some classrooms.
You cannot sacrifice the education of the rest of the class because of one or two children that are causing a disruption like that.
Because not everyone is trained on how it should work.
Right now, we're in the growing pain stage.
Castellano is fearful out-of-control students won't be sent out of the classroom, leaving teachers with no control. For example, this video we showed you last week of students at the Success Academy lap dancing in class. Castellano says sometimes the disruptions are much more violent.
They physically endanger other students, they physically endanger teachers.
So far, 24 middle and high schools have received restorative practice training.
There hasn't been enough training.
The rest of the schools will get training over the next 2 summers. But the new code of conduct is already in place in all schools, and it's often up to teachers to determine discipline, not administrators.
Ultimately, there has to be more training.
And Mark's 100% correct.
Bohatch says the training will come, but suspensions are already down across the district.
I didn't get suspended none this year.
Tanaria Lane is proud it hasn't happened to her once this year. And her school, Dunbar Middle, saw a huge drop in suspensions from 289 last year to 64 this year. Castellano thinks the program has promise. He is just hoping it runs smoother soon.
Now, if we continue to have these same kind of issues going into next year that we've been experiencing, then some red flags need to be raised.
Dr. Bohatch says his top priority has always been to protect the classroom and keep everyone there safe. He says his staff is there to help any teachers in schools who need it.
A student stabbed and cut with scissors during a brawl in a suburban school, talking only to us. That fight posted on social media, charges now filed. Liz Nagy's live in Oak Lawn tonight with that story. Liz.
Ellen, the mother of this student, says she started warning the school last week that another student was threatening to fight her daughter. Then yesterday, that fight happened. We should warn you, the video is hard to watch. She's bleeding. This was more than just a regular high school hallway fight.
I guess we just started throwing punches.
Destiny Garza, the girl in a black t-shirt and shorts, says she was attacked.
I felt something, but I didn't know it, it didn't feel like a punch.
It wasn't.
She just kept stabbing me, I guess. I didn't know she had the scissors in her head at all. That girl was landing them from my daughter's face and her chest and not stopping.
Video on social media shows the hallway brawl surrounded by swarms of students rolling on their cell phones. It was a student, not a school staff member, who stepped in and pried the scissors from the other girl's hands.
I have a lot of punctures all over my body, like all on my shoulders right here.
And on top of it, nobody came to save my daughter where she should be safe. Nobody was there. Nobody.
In a statement, a school district spokesperson says, in part, the fight lasted approximately 35 seconds and goes on to say, we will utilize appropriate school procedures to ensure each student's due process rights are provided, and we will then determine what school consequences will be issued.
That girl showed no remorse. She was out to kill my child, and they're handling it as if it's just another fight.
We are also following breaking news from the city's south side. We are learning that several students were involved in a fight inside the cafeteria at Woodson Middle School.
Eyewitness News reporter Pooja Lodia joins us live from the school with why parents say they had a feeling something like this would happen. Pooja?
Eric, students as well as parents are very upset right now. Students were actually just let out of school a short time ago after the school was placed on lockdown for much of the afternoon. I want to show you this video. A student just gave this to me. You can see just how violent that fight was. You can see dozens of kids were involved. District officials aren't giving a lot of details at this point, but they are saying that the fight was handled administratively and that the students involved have been disciplined. But we do know that Houston Police's gang unit responded.
20 kids came and jumped you?
Not just me. It was like it was 6 of us, and it was against 20 of them.
And show me your lip. What happened?
They had stubbed me in my face.
Now, that student says she is being suspended, but I did speak to her mother and other family members. They are telling me that they have been complaining that something like this may happen for quite a while. They're obviously very upset right now.
Get the hell on! It's on my shirt. What is up with you? What you do? Get on!
I bet you ain't gonna crack them, Brad.
Oh, awesome. Oh! I like that. Get him in the figure 4. Oh, shit. Oh,
Oh.
They don't talk about my students. I said, big ass boy. Big ass boy. Bitch ass dude. I know you missed. Let's it again. Try it again. What's up? Fucking ass nigga. Alright, bitch ass nigga. What? What's up, dude? Think so.
Hey, chill out.
Hey, stop.
Parents are calling for 2 educators to be fired after a full-blown brawl in a classroom full of kids. A student got this cell phone video involving a teacher and a paraprofessional in Channel 2's Taisha Fernandez live at Stone Mountain Middle School. Taisha, you talk about outrage on this story, and the parents are asking why these educators still have jobs.
Justin, school officials are asking parents to be patient while they investigate this fight because this school is a public entity, and that means by law these staff members can keep their jobs pending the outcome of the investigation, but they can't be around students.
I really didn't know that, but to find out today, that's unacceptable.
Valerie Stewart has a daughter in the 7th grade at Stone Mountain Middle School. She couldn't believe a teacher and a paraprofessional were attacking each other in a classroom full of students. A student shot this cell phone video. Her daughter Madison wasn't in this classroom Friday, but she, along with hundreds of other students, have seen this video.
I couldn't believe it. Like, at first I thought it was kids too fighting, but then they said it was teachers, and I was like, that's just bad.
The video shows students trying to break up the fight, but it didn't work. Some other staff members had to break it up.
They couldn't have waited until school was out, mature adults, and then talk about it after the kids were out of the classroom.
School officials are investigating why this happened, and in the meantime, both staff members will keep their jobs with the district. However, they've been pulled from the classroom. This student thinks they should have been setting a better example.
I think that the principal should do something more than give them back their job.
Officials sent me a statement that says the interaction and conduct in the video is completely unacceptable and contrary to our district's tenets and core principles.
We send our kids to school to learn for an education, not to sit there and witness a fight between 2 adults.
Now, after we did that story, I tweeted it out. And I said, hey, this is not something you see every day. And somebody had to remind me that I had done this story before, 3 or 4 years ago in Memphis. Black teachers fighting in front of a black classroom.
Well, Claudia, you've probably seen the billboards when you've driven around town, or maybe the advertisement when you're at the movie theater. It says, I teach, I am, and it's a part of the Teacher Effectiveness Initiative by Memphis City Schools. And one of the stars of that advertisement campaign is accused of slapping another teacher in front of students. According to a police affidavit, Barbara Bennett was upset that Sharon Holland fussed at some of her students. Holland told police Bennett came into her class angry about the confrontation. They then went out into the hallway and got into a fight. It's unclear who started the fight, but police say the women pushed, shoved, hit, punched, and slapped each other. One of those teachers, Barbara Bennett, is a part of Memphis City Schools' Teacher Effectiveness Advertisement Campaign. MCS says Bennett's ads are used as a framework for teacher recognition. Tiffany Smith says she and Sharon Holland need to practice what they preach.
It's kind of hard for teachers to expect children to, follow the rules if they're not going to do it themselves.
Rhea Buckley is the mother of twins and lives just around the corner from Knight Road Elementary where the fight happened.
I've never heard anything like this. I don't think
teachers or adults in that manner should conduct themselves like that.
Buckley says teachers of all people should know what's appropriate inside of a school building.
I think that's really unprofessional. I mean, they could have talked it out, and if they feel like they want to fight, they could have waited till they got around each other at home.
A Memphis City school spokesperson says some see the fight, but they aren't sure how many.
That's not a good example for them. They might not have good examples at home, or they probably idolize those teachers.
Denisha Milbrook says if they could do that to each other, there's no telling what they could do to students if they got mad enough.
Fire them like from abandoned from every school, because what made me think if you doing it at this school, you want to go to another school and do it.
If you ever listen to the most popular podcast in America, it's called This American Life. They did a podcast on this a couple of years ago. A year. I mean, when they do a podcast, I mean, they really, it's all hands on deck, right? So they found one of these schools in New York City where they were doing the restorative justice thing, where if a kid goes up and attacks another kid with a pair of scissors, they don't suspend them. They do restorative justice. Everybody sits down at a table and they talk it out, including the bully, including the predator, including the victim, and they all sing Kumbaya, and that restores the universe to harmony. Well, they were, you can tell in this NPR story, they were all down with it. They were very enthusiastic. Man, this is like the answer to, this is a secret to the universe stuff here. Till at the end of the podcast, all the students go on a field trip. So they go on a subway, and maybe there was a little hijinks on the subway. Anyway, they get off the subway. Next thing you know, a whole bunch of students are attacking an adult. They get into a fight with an adult. Well, this adult happens to be a cop, an off-duty cop. So even that, to their credit, that made the people at NPR kind of look at it and go, maybe we ought to spend a little bit more time at the drawing board on this whole restorative justice thing. Now, to their credit, I went to look up the headline from the text of the executive order that Obama issued. It was called the White House Initiative on African American Excellence in Schools, or something like that. And there was not just one order. I mean, there was videos on it. There was all sorts of stuff on the Department of Education website. All those things are gone. So maybe the people at the Department of Education figured this out in a big hurry. I sure hope so. Because, these schools, we just learned in Baltimore the other day, there are 6 schools in Baltimore where not one student in the school was doing reading, writing, arithmetic at anything close to the minimum state standards. 6 schools. But if you ask the teachers in Baltimore, if you ask the reporters in Baltimore, if you ask the school board members in Baltimore and the public officials in Baltimore, they were happy as hell with it because the suspensions were down, and you know what happens when that happens. None of the black kids get angry.